We look at the Denver Nuggets and say, whoa, just a week ago, they were that minus 115 or so price. Now we're looking at them at a 7-1 price. Any chances the Nuggets can actually come back?
I think this is going 6 or 7 games, so I think that could be a little bit of a tighter spread between those two. But when you got those two guys, those two monsters, and Towns and Edwards, it's just really hard.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Every missed call, the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A ton of basketball on this Tuesday night. A doubleheader of NBA playoff action. The 2024 WNBA season debuts tonight with a quadruple header as well. We welcome you to hour number 3 of this Tuesday on the Early Line, our third and final. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We'll also go around the Daily Diamond Dash in Major League Baseball. We'll talk some hockey with Anna Dua later on in this third and final hour. DRS, there is so much to get to and some more NFL news as this Tuesday morning plays out.
Yeah, big week overall, too. We talked about the PGA Championship this weekend, the schedule release Wednesday here. So some sports here that normally wouldn't get a ton of play, really stepping back into the forefront. It's always NFL season, but anytime we see that release, that gets me hot under the collar when I look at that Cowboys team. All right, let's get started here, Ben. I don't want to lose it this early in the hour. I just can't do that.
I need to know exactly what is getting you hot under the collar. We'll do that at the end of this segment to start off this hour. Also, big news in the WNBA before the season starts tonight. It was announced the new Golden State Valkyries, the next expansion team to make it 13 in the WNBA, are starting in just a few years, maybe next season as well. That means a 14th team on the horizon to make things even in the WNBA. It's only good news, DRS. Put a smile on that face. Focus your hate on the Dallas Cowboys. So, a doubleheader of NBA playoff action on this Tuesday night. Game number 5 as we change venues once again. We return to the Garden inside MSG between the Knicks and the Pacers. We go at altitude between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. In both of those series, tied at 2 games apiece. So what is the best bet for tonight's NBA playoff games? That was the question in Fade the Public. We got a pretty even response here at SportsGrid on Twitter. Is it the Knicks as a 2.5-point home favorite tonight back inside the Mecca? Is it the Pacers winning outright as an underdog? Can the Nuggets carry the momentum from Minneapolis back home to Denver? Will somebody finally win a home game in that series? Most and I mean most ever so slightly. 29.3% saying it is the Nuggets laying 4, now 4.5 at home. But the second most selected option in this Fade the Public poll, DRS, the Pacers outright tonight inside MSG.
Yeah, if you're taking a look at these numbers here, right? +2.5 for the Pacers, +4 for the Wolves. Forget about those prices here on the sides. Just take the money line. You could probably make some money tonight because I do believe one of these road teams is going to win. So my vote in this went towards the Pacers. And that's nothing to do with, Donnie, you like the Timberwolves. Can't believe you're not betting them. I do think the Timberwolves have a legitimate chance to win tonight, and maybe we'll do that. But I do agree that they're coming in with 20% of the vote, which is low because, again, it's the world champion Nuggets. They're at home. They're supposed to win. I get it. But when I look at the Knicks, man, I didn't like anything about what I saw in game number 4 at all, quite frankly, in those back-to-back games losing. So I look at that momentum for the Pacers when I just line these two teams up man for man. If you could tell me tonight Brunson is going to be fully healthy and he's going to shoot 30 times, he's going to shoot 45 points, of course the Knicks have a legitimate chance to win in their own building. But if he's just slightly off, and I mean off means he scores 34 points, I think the Pacers end up winning this game. I voted for the Pacers, 28% of the vote coming with them in a close election here. I'll go Pacers +2.5. That's where I went.
Listen, it's a steep hill to climb for the New York Knicks, even returning to Madison Square Garden, where they looked like the better team in both of those games. Of course, the controversial ending, Rick Carlisle was not happy with what he felt was the hometown crowd getting the calls, but still, the New York Knicks won both games inside Madison Square Garden. It's going to be difficult without OG Anunoby. Because where do you find that offensive output? It was tight in game number 3, that first game without OG, where Tibbs made the adjustments and the Pacers had to figure things out late in the fourth quarter. But in game number 4, and this often happens, when you lose somebody that makes a significant impact, in that first game without them, you can start to kind of fill a couple of those gaps. But as a series plays out, that disadvantage becomes a little bit too large. Is that what's happening here? And I said this yesterday, and I think it needs to be stressed. The Pacers are the series outright favorite, and yet they are an underdog for this 5th game. If they are a dog for game 5 after winning both in Indianapolis, if they were to lose tonight, as the odds would say even outright, return home to game 6 in Indy, they'd be booked as a favorite. To stave off elimination, would they be a favorite on the road in a winner-take-all game 7 inside Madison Square Garden? I would consider that hard to believe. So if you believe the Pacers, because of how shorthanded and banged up New York is, are the rightful series favorites, you take them on the money line for game 5 tonight inside the world's most famous arena.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game to watch play out, and also some of those betting intricacies that we'll talk about a little bit later in this hour. Like, we all expect, like, Brunson has to have a monster night in order for the Knicks to win. We get that. But also, more importantly, you saw in that last game, Ben, Donte DiVincenzo, invisible. Josh Hart, invisible. They can't be invisible and expect to be even competent or even close in this ball game. And as we know, teams usually play better with their B role players at home as they do on the road. So if you're expecting the Knicks to win this game, Brunson's going to have a big game. DiVincenzo's going to knock down 4 or 5 3-point shots, and Josh Hart might get close to a triple-double in this game. That's what we have to anticipate. So for my betting money, look, I might just bet Donte DiVincenzo whatever his 3-point prop line is tonight, because if you tell me Donte DiVincenzo is going to score under 10 points, they're getting rocked at home. But I think he has a decent night tonight, even though I still do think the Pacers win this one and go outright.
Again, that is the silver lining for the Knicks getting blown out by 32 in Game 4 on Sunday in Indy. We didn't see a lot of minutes out of guys like Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson and Donte DiVincenzo with how much is expected and necessary of them to even keep games close. I bet Jalen Brunson over 32.5 last night at plus 102. It's now minus 106 for the juice because there is no way the New York Knicks win this game if Jalen Brunson stays under 30 points or maybe even under 32.5. And if he is even a little bit banged up but got a little bit of rest in game number 4, I think he plays 40-plus minutes tonight. He needs to take at least 26 field goal attempts. That's how we get to 32.5 to the over. How do we feel about the other game? The nightcap in the Mile High City at altitude. Denver now a 4.5-point favorite against Minnesota. Of course, in this series, all 4 road teams have won outright as a road underdog. In Denver, Donnie, frankly, has not been great covering numbers at home throughout their postseason. 5 games in Denver. Right now, as it stands, they are 3-2 straight up, with all 3 victories coming against the LA Lakers, but they are only 1-4 against the number. So even if we think Denver wins tonight, can they cover even with a shorter number of just 4.5 points?
Yeah, that's going to be something to look at. And also, we know Anthony Edwards, that young superstar guard out there from Minnesota, is probably going to give you that 30-plus point performance. The question is, what Karl Anthony Towns, Ben, are we going to get? Last game at Denver, played 36 minutes, 27 points, which included 10 of 15 from the field. You're supposed to play better at home, and he goes back-to-back nights with 14 points and 13 points. We need a lot more out of Cap, but I've said this. Like I've been telling you, I really like the Timberwolves, and I think they do get the victory tonight on the road against the Denver Nuggets. Take that 4 points, that plus 152. This is going to be a great game to watch. I would be thoroughly surprised if either team wins by double digits. I'm expecting this game to come down to the wire, and I'm going to give those T-Wolves the edge. Why? Because they're used to winning in Denver. It's just what they do.
All right, now more important story. What was your point on the Cowboys? Why were you so hot and bothered?
Yeah, because we're going to watch them not play a short Thursday night week for like the 30th straight year when no other team in the NFL actually has that. So we always cater. I'm telling you right now, you want to keep them on Thanksgiving. That's such an advantage. Put them on the road every single Thanksgiving. They'll stay on Thanksgiving, and they'll get their head beat in, which is what we all want to watch. Enough with it. Enough.
Baseball next.
Every missed call, the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Devastating loss to Georgia Tech, where they made significant coaching errors, but Miami, with all of these changes, obviously looking to churn over this roster and upgrade the talent level.
Don't sleep on Rick Pitino. Listen, at the end of the day, the portal is the portal, Mike. Don't matter where you came from, it's where you're going and how much money can you get.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify in these majors. You got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
The Daily Bases, live right here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. It's Ben, it's Donnie, but more importantly, it's Craig. Craig Mish, our MLB insider here on the SportsGrid Network, the host of Newswire, starting each and every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Craig, we thank you for being here on this Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day, I think, of baseball. A lot of fun slates. You know, interestingly enough, I mean, it's that time of the year where I'm starting to get some emails about the All-Star game. I mean, we're 2 months away now from the All-Star game. So trying to put my ideas together for that. I think I'll be headed there to Texas this year to see that. So, it's voting starts, I think, in a couple of weeks, and just it feels like the season just started, but here we are, a quarter of the season in.
A full Major League Baseball slate on this Tuesday. Day baseball up in Queens between the Mets and the Phillies. We got a doubleheader on the south side of Chicago. A lot of MLB to get to. But let's start first by looking back, Craig, on a couple of the marquee matchups last night on Monday in Atlanta, a pitcher's duel. Reynaldo Lopez gets the better kind of Shota Imanaga. More so, the Braves got the better of the Cubs because both starters yesterday scoreless outings in 5 innings of work, but it's Atlanta who plates 2 in the 6th to win the game 2-0 over the Cubbies. What was your takeaway of this pitcher's duel between Imanaga and Lopez, the 2 best ERAs in all of MLB?
Yeah, I think Lopez is a huge surprise because I don't think that there was track record, Ben, to show that this was going to be the guy who he is. He's all of a sudden put himself into a position where you can easily say he's one of the Braves' best 3 starters. I think that that's very fair to say at this point, especially with Spencer Strider not there. Lopez was thought to be their 6th best starter going into the season. And as far as Imanaga is concerned, then again, this game was basically won and lost by the bullpens. I mean, we really have to start entertaining the conversation about the possibility of him winning both the Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young. It's almost impossible to do. You don't see it that often. But, he going into the season, I had a really good feeling about him. In my fantasy leagues, I have him everywhere. I guess that's one good thing. But as far as the market was concerned, he really had no market for that. And I do think that this is going to continue. Very high strikeout guy. But, it's so interesting in baseball these days when you look at box scores after games and you go back and forth. It's like both these guys pitched 5 innings. That's what we're talking about. Cy Young Award winners who just go 5 innings in baseball. And that's certainly what Imanaga did yesterday and Lopez as well.
Basically, a couple of guys going 5 innings again last night was that Dodgers-Giants game, which was a 6-4 win for the Dodgers. Yamamoto goes 5 2/3 innings and 4 earned runs. ERA not too bad on the season, though, at 3.21. Hicks had a good performance and has been solid this year. 5 innings pitched at 7 hits and 2 earned runs, lowering his ERA to 2.44. But yesterday, Ohtani back into the lineup, 205 with an RBI, now hitting 354 on the season. Some tough times here. Junko Lee, who came over to play for the Giants, now goes on the IL. Is that a serious injury that we're looking at for multiple weeks, or is he just banged up and they wanted to give him a little bit of a rest?
I don't think that they fully reported as far as his shoulder is concerned. I think they initially said it was dislocated and had an MRI. But, Donnie, to compound that, Jorge Soler was the other big free agent offensive signing that they had, and he's on the injured list as well. Give credit to the Giants for picking Jordan Hicks off the free agent wire scrap heap. I don't know. I mean, look, when you give somebody $40 million, it's not chump change, but they immediately made him into a starting pitcher, and that has really proven to be worth it for Farhan Zaidi and the Giants organization. So great job by them. But I guess the question is, are the Giants legit? Can they stay in this thing for a long period of time, sustaining these injuries and just sort of being a middling 500 team? I don't know the answer to that. The other part of this, Donnie, when you remove 2 bats like that, albeit Soler does strike out. I mean, 13 strikeouts last night. That's a lot. That's a lot for the offense to do against not only Yamamoto, but the relief pitchers of the Dodgers too. So I think the Giants may be in some trouble hanging in there.
The top 4 guys in the Dodgers order yesterday: Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, all batting .290 or better. That's what you would expect out of this high-powered L.A. offense. So, Craig, when we talk about the National League Rookie of the Year award odds, you mentioned Shota Imanaga. He is the favorite for Rookie of the Year. He also now has a 7-1 price to win the National League Cy Young. But as we focus on Rookie of the Year, is it a 2-player, a 2-pitcher race between Imanaga and Yamamoto the entirety of this MLB campaign?
Well, it's interesting, Ben. I think that Skeens coming up is going to put more awareness on the Pirates, and maybe that helps Jared Jones a little bit. Jones has been fantastic for them and doesn't get talked about enough. I do think it will be a pitcher in the National League. I mean, you look at those top 3 guys. It has been a strange season for rookie hitters, no question about that. Guys have come up and they have not performed while the pitchers have, and that's usually the opposite. Usually rookie pitchers don't do well, and the hitters take advantage of that. But I do think it is a 3-player race at this point. I would not discount Jones at all. I know some people want to throw Skeens in there. I think Imanaga is just so far ahead. He's got such a big head start on Skeens. I think Imanaga clearly the favorite there, and I definitely would look at a possible Cy Young award for Imanaga too. He's been that good.
Let's get to the card tonight. 7:40 start in Minneapolis. That's the Yankees and the Twins. Rodon versus Paddock. A dropping line that opened up at FanDuel at -144. Now down to -122 as a favorite towards the Yanks. Two teams vying for division supremacy in the respective divisions here, Craig.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to win, but my gosh, Paddock's strikeout totals look really impressive lately. So, I mean, that may be something to play tonight, just his individual strikeout prop. As far as the game is concerned, I think it's pretty much even. I think if the game was in New York, they'd be a little bit of a bigger favorite. Twins are hot, though, so they're not a team to fade. Look at that strikeout prop, I would say, for Paddock tonight. Yankees will take a lot of pitches, but they'll strike out as well.
4.5 is that K prop for Chris Paddock. The over does have the juice. Craig, another divisional duel in the AL East today in Baltimore. The Blue Jays won in extras yesterday, courtesy of Dalton Varsho coming back and knocking off the O's in the opener. Does Baltimore get even tonight?
Yeah, I mean, probably so. I mean, I think Baltimore's a better team than Toronto. The Blue Jays' wins have been sporadic, to say the least, although Varsho has been great. Yeah. They're also tinkering with the lineup a little bit. That's something to keep an eye on with the Blue Jays as we move forward to see if that works, whether a healthy Springer bats at the top or somewhere else. But, yeah, probably a little bit of a lean tonight toward the Orioles, who, to me, are in a different class than the Blue Jays right now.
The O's -164 as your home money line favorite. The Jays, 3 games below 500 in the cellar of the AL East. Craig, Mish, we appreciate the time. We will see you in just about 40 minutes on Newswire here on the Grid. More coming your way around the diamond next.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Devastating loss to Georgia Tech, where they made significant coaching errors, but Miami, with all of these changes, obviously looking to churn over this roster and upgrade the talent level.
Don't sleep on Rick Pitino. Listen, at the end of the day, the portal is the portal, Mike. Don't matter where you came from, it's where you're going and how much money can you get.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for, so I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. Mm-hmm. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
More around the Major League Baseball diamond on this Tuesday, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. Low-scoring game yesterday in the ATL. The Braves edge out the Cubs 2-0 despite two scoreless performances from the two starters. Imanaga for Chicago, Lopez for Atlanta. Today it's Jameson Taillon on the bump for the Cubbies, Chris Sale on the other side for the Braves, and Atlanta DRS booked as nearly a $2 favorite.
Yeah, we're taking a look at that 8 number again and probably going under. And this is a tough scene because typically when Atlanta is at home, you're getting good weather conditions. You didn't have them yesterday, and certainly today, not going to be that great. 70 degrees, which is decent. A chance of rain in the forecast, but a wind blowing in from right field at 6 miles per hour. Yesterday, only got 2 runs. You got a good pitching matchup. Once again today, Jameson Taillon on the season, 94 batters he's faced, which isn't a lot, but you want to take a look at the 0.91 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 222. That's spectacular here. And also looking at those Atlanta bats, not exactly crunching it like they were a couple weeks ago, where it's 5+ runs on a night-to-night basis. Now, if we're taking a look at the Chicago Cubs, they actually have a pretty decent lineup on the card if you're just facing a normal left-handed pitcher. First 6 guys in the lineup, Ben. Take a look at these weighted on-base percentages this season against lefties. 368, 409, 418, 409, 613, and 420. They should be able to do some damage, but it's not just a normal lefty on the opposite side today for the Atlanta Braves. It's Chris Sale looking like he's back in the form with the Chicago White Sox and the Boston Red Sox. His ISO 101, weighted on base percentage 256. He's been absolutely lights out, particularly against right-handed batters. We're going under today in the Big A once again.
Could we see 2 straight unders? Yesterday's total was 8 as well. That is Donnie Right-Side's prediction here on this Tuesday on the early line. Texas didn't score a single run yesterday. The Guardians didn't in the first 7 frames and then played at 7 in the final 2 innings to shut out the Rangers in Arlington 7-0. They did so in a dead even pick'em. Today's money line's not all that different. Jack Leiter on the bump today for the Rangers, a -120 price. The total at 9. It's pretty close to a pick'em yet again in Texas. Who wins?
Yeah, I'll probably take the +102 price point here. You take a look at Ben Lively on the mound today. His ISO power number is very good this year, Ben. Combined between lefties and righties, a 137, which is great. 298 weighted on base percentage. He was really bad last year. Overall, at a 220 ISO and a 355 weighted on base percentage against 383 pitchers. So pitching much, much better than what we saw last year. But let's get to the focus on the opposite side, and that's going to be with Jack Leiter. You take a look at only 42 batters he's faced, but really not getting any guys out, if many. 333 ISO power number and a weighted on base percentage of 487. It's not a great looking lineup against right-handed pitching today for those Guardians, but I do think they have the better pitching matchup here, and I think they can score some runs. If you're looking for one RBI prop, who do you always look for in the lineup for the Guardians? That's Josh Naylor right in the middle of the 4-hole. I don't think he got a base hit yesterday, so certainly could be due. Against right-handed pitching this season, Ben, 275 ISO, 381 weighted on base percentage, but here's what we love. First 5 batters in the lineup today for the Guardians against right-handed pitching. Look at their strikeout rates, 15%, 16, 11, 10, and 15, which means those guys are putting the baseball in play, so that's where those runs will come from. Naylor's the best of the bunch in the middle of that lineup if you're looking, though, for an RBI.
The Houston Astros have now won 4 of their last 5 games and nearly a $2 favorite today at home once again in H-Town against the A's. Ronel Blanco on the bump for the Stros, 4-0 this year with a 2.23 ERA. That's one of the 10 best ERAs in all of baseball. Nearly a $2 favorite to make it 5 of 6 today in Houston.
Yeah, by the way, making adjustments from last year, Blanco's a bad pitcher. 226 batters he's faced, a 357 weighted on base percentage. Where does that sit this year? Against 176 batters, a 247, a market improvement there. The one thing we like about Oakland is they do very well against right-handed pitching. Now, last night they didn't do that. So you know Rooker, Langoliers, and Soderstrom in the middle of that lineup probably are going to do some damage, even though it doesn't make sense from a wager perspective for me on an RBI prop. But that lineup has done very good things over the past couple weeks against right-handed pitching. JP Sears on the mound for the opposite side. Your run-of-the-mill guy. He was really bad last year, but a little bit better this year. 187 combined ISO power number and a weighted on base percentage of 302. Keep in mind, he's a left-handed pitcher. Against righties, that's a 194 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 323. So roughly average on both of those sides. Tucker, Alvarez, and Pena, along with Singleton in the middle of that lineup, should do some damage. If you're looking for RBI props, probably a better clear-cut chance to go with Pena in the 4-hole today for those Astros. He'll definitely be on my card tonight, it looks like.
Kyle Tucker a ribby yesterday. He's got 29 this year. He leads all of the bigs with 13 home runs. DRS, day baseball up at Citi Field in Queens. The Mets a home underdog against the Phils. The Bryson Stott game and the comeback against Edwin Diaz. Trumpets to the break.
Every missed call, the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Devastating loss to Georgia Tech, where they made significant coaching errors, but Miami, with all of these changes, obviously looking to churn over this roster and upgrade the talent level.
Don't sleep on Rick Pitino. Listen, at the end of the day, the portal is the portal, Mike. Don't matter where you came from, it's where you're going and how much money can you get.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
A Game 5 last night in New York, a Game 4 in Colorado, and another doubleheader on this Tuesday night in the Stanley Cup postseason. To help you with everything you need to know on the ice, Anna Dua from the NHL joins us here on this Tuesday morning on the early line. Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to be here on TEL.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Let's dive into game number 5, where Anna maybe ruffled some feathers this past week on social media in the greater area of the Big Apple, but maybe Anna Dua was on to something. The New York Rangers in Game 5 with a chance, Anna, to clinch the series in advance to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in the last 3 seasons, had a shorthanded goal in the second. We're up 1-0 entering the third to only see Carolina score 4 unanswered to stave off elimination once again in game number 5 with the 4-1 win. Anna, are things starting to get a little nerve-wracking for those New York Rangers?
I think, starting off this series, it seemed like it was way more lopsided than it was. Both of the teams played super well, but it was all 1-goal games, right? And last night, the game we saw was the biggest goal differential these two teams have had this entire series. And they're both very, very good squads. The Hurricanes were not going to go down easy. I know the Rangers were on the verge of a sweep. I actually thought Game 4 was the best game that New York had, and that was their best chance to kind of close out that series. But Carolina got a little bit of momentum, and yesterday was the biggest statement win that we've seen so far in this round between these teams. So you wonder, going back to Raleigh, Carolina historically a great playoff team at home in the postseason, if they're going to be able to carry that momentum even further. And if they tie up the series, I don't love the way it's looking for New York in a Game 7 if Carolina's won 3 straight, right?
Oh boy, if we are headed to Game 7 in MSG after that big lead here, a lot of tension in the building. But I'll tell you this, the Avalanche opened up game number 1 in their series with a 1-0 series lead. They've now lost 3 straight times, which includes last night's 5-1 home loss to the Stars that saw Wyatt Johnson 3 points in that game, 2 goals and 1 assist. Away the Stars, playing some great hockey here, Anna.
They're playing phenomenal hockey, and I had them coming out of the West. So my Stanley Cup final before the postseason started was the Dallas Stars and the Carolina Hurricanes. So they're both proving me right with the way they played in their last couple of games. Wyatt Johnston is on a completely different level. It's hard to think about the fact that this kid is so young and he's playing the way he's playing right now. Miro Heiskanen as well for the Dallas Stars on the back end, having a phenomenal postseason. And for Colorado, you just have to consider the fact that they're not looking too hot in this series. They lost Valeri Nichushkin. He re-enters the Players Assistance Program in the NHL, so he was a big part of this postseason for this Avs team. Losing him is a big loss for them there, too. So Colorado looked a little bit in shambles. Dallas looks really strong. I feel like all the momentum is in their favor right now, and Dallas is looking like they could make it all the way to the end with the way they've been playing as of late.
The Avs got that news on Nichushkin, now suspended once again, entering game number 4 last night. A big blow, and now the Avs are down 3-1. So Dallas returns home tomorrow night, Anna, for game number 5 as a pretty hefty home ice favorite. It's game 6 back in Raleigh between the Hurricanes and the Rangers. New York, the road ice underdog, but with the chance to clinch a series. So as you look at these two series now, Dallas up 3-1. The Rangers still hold on to a 3-2 series lead. Which set comes to a close the soonest?
I think the Dallas Stars. I think Dallas has all the momentum. They've had some dominant wins. They've showcased that they are the stronger team, and with everything that's going on with Colorado, I don't know if they bounce back. So I think Dallas is the one that closes it out earlier. I do think the Carolina Rangers series goes to 7. I think game 6 will be closer than what we saw in game 5 for sure. Maybe going back to the 1-goal differential we're used to between these two teams in this series, but they're so evenly matched that I feel like this series has to go 7.
Let's take a look at Boston and Florida tonight on the schedule. It could be closing time as well for Florida if they do win. That'll be a 5-game series win. Swayman in net, Bobrovsky in net tonight. 2-10, a heavy favorite here for Florida. Will it be easy for Florida to put away Boston? And also, is Marchand expected to play in this game?
Never say never, like Boston could bounce back. This is a team that I've doubted them so much in the past, and they always find a way to prove me wrong. However, this is not a good look for Boston right now. They've been in this situation before, and it's really not panned out well for them when they were down 3-1 in a postseason series. And Florida's carrying all of the momentum right now. We'll see if Brad Marchand returns and if that can kind of add some life back into this Bruins lineup. But the way I've been seeing Florida play as of late, I mean, the last game, I know there was a little bit of contest about whether a goal was good or not and how that ended up panning out, but Florida was pretty much the dominant team regardless. So you don't want to be in that situation where you're Boston and you kind of let it come down to that in such a critical game. Florida has all the momentum. I feel like they've just put up so many shots on goal. They've gotten a lot of goals. They've rattled Boston a little bit, and it seems like this team really honestly could close it out.
Boston blew out Florida in the first game in Sunrise 5-1. Since then, the Panthers have won 3 straight, looking to bounce the Bees from the postseason for a second consecutive year. And now we go to game 4 tonight in Edmonton. Again, the odds makers entering this series expected it to be quick and relatively easy for the Oilers. It's been anything but. Vancouver, a 2-1 series lead entering game number 4 tonight, but the odds makers favor the Oilers once again, close to a $2 favorite price on that money line. Does Edmonton draw even in game 4 tonight?
This is the one series where, honestly, I don't have a read on what's going on because I feel like the Oilers were really set up. They had their best first-round series I've seen in the past couple of postseasons where they looked really dominant against LA for the first time in a while. And then Vancouver's having a lot of bad injury luck this postseason as well, with key pieces like Thatcher Demko being injured, and they're still able to rally against a very, very strong Edmonton team. You wonder if it's the same old story with the Oilers every single year where their core is just not able to make up for the deficiencies in their back end and their goaltending, and that's kind of what I've been seeing right now. There's still close games, right? There's a couple of 1-goal differential games in this series as well, so it could have honestly gone either way, but with the team that Vancouver has, Edmonton really had the opportunity to prove a point, and they just haven't. So they need to tie up this series. If Vancouver gets a 3-1 lead, the Oilers are going to be so deflated. I don't know if they can come back from that.
Yeah, take a look at that graphic that we just had up. Game 7 here is a plus 114 price, which means that's the favorite for this series to go 7. How exciting certainly would that be? Let's flip it over to the NHL conference odds. And if we start in the Eastern Conference, the Panthers right now, Anna, are the favorites here at minus 105 to be the champions of the Eastern Conference and play for the Stanley Cup, followed by the Rangers, Hurricanes, and the Bruins at 23-1. Do we agree that the Panthers right now should be the favorite in the Eastern Conference, at least in the betting odds?
I think we do agree, just because Florida's showcased how dominant they've been against Boston. They have a very solid team. They have a lot of players who can score goals. They've been there before. If they play the Carolina Hurricanes, we know how that panned out last year. The Rangers are finally looking a little bit shaky after starting off this postseason undefeated, so that's kind of good for Florida as well. I feel like that's the team that has the most momentum and the strongest odds and the chances right now. Carolina, I feel like this series against the Rangers, both of those teams, they're just wearing each other out right now. So when they end up playing Florida, I don't know if it's going to look good for either of them, to be honest, even though I did have Carolina beating Florida in my Eastern Conference Finals predictions.
If, and it's still a big if, the Hurricanes can come back from down 3-0 to beat the Rangers and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, I would love to see what that money price is on the Canes for that series outright. Anna's prediction out west, looking pretty good. Dallas a minus 140 favorite to win the Western Conference crown, and it seems like it's going to be a battle between the Oilers and the Canucks. Anna, in the final minute of this segment, let's talk Conn Smythe Award odds right now. 2 goaltenders at the top, Igor Shesterkin from New York, Jake Ottinger from Dallas. Who gets your pick at this moment?
Between those two, probably Jake Ottinger, but I want to give a shout out right now to the way Wyatt Johnston's playing. We mentioned him a little bit earlier. I think Wyatt Johnston, if Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup, and they're looking really solid right now. They're the most solid team I've seen as of late. He's right out there as well, guys. Got a better number on him for sure.
14-1 for Wyatt Johnston, the young 21-year-old who scored twice last night as Dallas beat Colorado in Denver. Anna Dua from the NHL. As always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
A preview of the 2 games in the NBA postseason comes your way up next, live right here on this Tuesday on the Early Line.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Devastating loss to Georgia Tech, where they made significant coaching errors, but Miami, with all of these changes, obviously looking to churn over this roster and upgrade the talent level.
Don't sleep on Rick Pitino. Listen, at the end of the day, the portal is the portal, Mike. Don't matter where you came from, it's where you're going and how much money can you get.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for, so I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
For the second time in the second round of the NBA postseason, we change venues once again. A doubleheader of Game 5s tonight in the NBA. It starts inside the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. Game 5 between the Knicks and the Pacers. It ends with the nightcap out in Mile High between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. A preview, breakdown, and some bets from both of those games comes your way with the two premier NBA handicappers here on the SportsGrid Network. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. Soon DRS. When the NBA season gives way to the WNBA season over the summer, the two premier handicappers around the W on the Spiz Grizz live right here as well.
Yep, three-point player props be damned this summer with the WNBA. We'll continue that all the way through. When's the last game, by the way, in the WNBA? Did we go all the way through to Labor Day?
September.
When does it end?
Yeah.
There we go.
It's
Perfect.
through
Carries
September,
all
the
way
WNBA Finals through September as well. A long summer in the W ahead. It should be great times. All right, we start tonight, though, in the NBA playoffs with the first game of two inside MSG. The Knicks return home after dropping 2 in Indianapolis. They were shorthanded for both. They covered in Game 3. They got blown out by 32 in Game 4. We are tied at 2 games apiece, with the Knicks a 2-point favorite tonight inside the Garden. Now, we know they are going to be shorthanded once again. We do not expect to see OG Anunoby tonight. The total at 217. What do you think plays out tonight inside the Mecca in game number 5?
I think the Pacers are the better team. I do. And unless the referees step in and sort of say, nope, the Knicks are going to win this basketball game, I think Indiana's going to win this one tonight and take that series lead with 3 straight victories. When we're talking about correlated bets and how they work, you take a look at that -2.5 price on the Knicks. Why would you bet that -2.5 price here? Because I told you early in the show, there's no way we're escaping this game without big performances by the 3 guys that are typically scoring points here for the New York Knicks, which would be Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, and also Josh Hart. You saw last game, Hart didn't show up, neither did DiVincenzo. But look at DiVincenzo's points prop tonight, Ben. 22.5 points, as if we're just going to go right back up to around 25 points, which is tough. But those aren't even the 2 guys that I'm looking for if I just want to say, well, I'd rather just do this. Jalen Brunson's points prop is 33.5 points. Let me tell you this right now.
Ooh,
if he doesn't, let's just say, get 30 tonight, they're not winning, Ben. Why would you take the -2.5? Like, hey, Donnie, man, Brunson had 19 points, 11 assists, and 3 rebounds. That's not happening. That means they got beat by double digits. Brunson is going to have one of his Jalen Brunson MVP, playoff games, which he's had quite a bit already this year. If not, the Knicks have no chance tonight. So I look directly at that correlation because there's a chance that he can score 35, 36, 37, and they still lose the game. Why would you take the -2.5 if you don't think Brunson is going to flat out dominate today? You can't. It's correlated.
Completely agree. I bet the over with some plus money at 32.5 last night, up by a point. The over still has the plus money. Jalen Brunson needs to go over both of those numbers if the New York Knicks are going to win this game or even keep it close and competitive. It is the burden of Brunson. He has to be their offense. And Donnie, even when things were more optimistic in the opening round against Philly, in the first 2 games here of this series against Indiana, it was all Jalen Brunson, and that included with OG Anunoby on the floor, who the last time we were at the Garden scored 28 points in less than 3 quarters before he exited with that left hamstring injury that has now sidelined him for 2 straight games. We expect a third. I would still think Josh Hart has to flirt with his over. Same with Tay having to light it up from 3 tonight. Tyrese Halliburton has started to find his offensive output. His points prop, 20.5. DRS, the highest total of this series was 223 for game number 3. And both you and I questioned if Jalen Brunson was banged up and without Anunoby, could they keep the pace? Could we see enough scoring for us to get there? No, stayed under. Game 4 stayed under as well, as New York did not provide much in terms of that offensive output. Total tonight is still 217. You need the New York Knicks to match the pace of the Pacers to keep this thing to an over. Both games inside Madison Square Garden skied over their pregame number.
Yeah, and I would agree with you there. And also, getting back to that betting strategy and philosophy, the later we go in a series, particularly a tie series, you don't get those more outlet breaks. Every single possession means just a little bit more. So I always generally lean towards those unders in that environment. If we're taking a look at some of those longer shot bets to take a look at, who the 48-minute man is out there. That's Josh Hart. So you take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook to get a triple-double tonight for Josh Hart. That's a 19-1 price. So we're typically taking a look at Nikola Jokic at like a 2 plus 200 price, maybe a Doncic at like a 4-1 price. He's 19-1. So obviously you're not betting on the points. He should be able to get to 10. It's really the assists. Can he get the double-digit assists? Because if he plays 48 minutes, he's going to be catching at least double-digit rebounds. I think that might be a fun bet to watch, and also a monster bounce-back situation. And also, we talk about he didn't play 48 minutes in the last game. Played roughly half of that. He's going to get that 48 minutes in the Garden tonight. That's a player to watch out for. That should be extra rested and ready for this one.
His rebounding prop is 12.5. That's actually back down from where it was by the time we reach Indy at 13 and a hook. It might sound outrageous, but it is the right number, and it all goes into the idea that he could stack up double digits in the three main stack categories. I do want to make this final point, and I promise we will preview the nightcap at altitude in Denver on the other side of the break. When you look at the money line, New York is a 2-point favorite, but it's minus 130, money line favorite. Indiana is the complete opposite in terms of the series price. The Pacers are a minus 130 series outright favorite to win, and yet they're an underdog in Game 5. Make that make sense. Match up the correlation. And to Donnie's point, if you think Indiana is the better side just because of how shorthanded the New York Knicks are at this moment, at this stage of the postseason, not only do you take them outright tonight in Game 5, you bet the minus 130 to win this series outright as well.
Makes some sense here, trying to put those numbers to hard work, and it does include a Pacers win tonight for me tonight, Ben. How do you like that? Pacers going to win this series. Pacers going to win tonight in the Garden. We'll talk some elevation next, who I think is another chance, Ben, for an upset alert special tonight. Great stuff in the NBA, man.
The Pacers would be at least a 5.5 point favorite for a potential series clincher back in Indy later this week. But we get to our second game of this NBA playoff doubleheader in Denver up next.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called, or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report, and people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Devastating loss to Georgia Tech, where they made significant coaching errors, but Miami, with all of these changes, obviously looking to churn over this roster and upgrade the talent level.
Don't sleep on Rick Pitino. Listen, at the end of the day, the portal is the portal, Mike. Don't matter where you came from, it's where you're going and how much money can you get.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
The nightcap of 2. Tonight inside the Mile High City in Denver, it's game number 5 between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. The first question we asked, is somebody going to win a game at home in this series? The old adage, DRS, in postseason play, regardless of where it is, a series does not start until a team wins on the road. What do you say for a series where no team has won on their own home floor? Does it happen tonight with the Nuggets, a 4.5-point home favorite?
I think it's a legitimate chance it does happen tonight. And also, what do you reach back on? Well, we didn't play all that well on our home court. All you needed to do was pick up one victory, and you're probably going to bounce the Denver Nuggets out of the playoffs. And you let those champions back in the door, and now the series favorite for them, because sooner or later, you're going to start winning games on your home court, and that might start tonight, which is why they're favorite. But I just look at the way the Minnesota Timberwolves played on the road in those first 2 games, which included game number 2 without Rudy Gobert, easily beating down the Nuggets, who we thought were dead to rights. Then they showed up with back-to-back performances in Minneapolis that were tremendous, and here we go in a 2-2 series, best of 3 with Denver on their home court. But when I'm taking a look at superstar players, it's tonight, like I keep missing on that triple-double out of Nikola Jokic, and he always puts you in the ballpark. It's 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 11 assists, 9 rebounds. We'll see if you can get close to that tonight. But all those eyes focus right on Anthony Edwards. When you are rolling like this, and they post a number at 29.5, it just feels like, again, correlation. The Timberwolves aren't escaping this game tonight with a victory unless Anthony Edwards does one of his 35-plus point performances, which I think he can do. But I talked about it earlier in the show. Karl Anthony Towns has to show up tonight. His points prop at 19.5 is also one of those key barometers. If he scores 13, 14, or 15 points, I don't think they can win. You need big performances out of Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns tonight, and I think there's a possibility you get that. I'm going to take the points tonight with the T-Wolves. I loved what they were in games 1 and 2, and I think they can get back to that, because technically you don't have to win in order to cover, but that's a tricky business to say, well, I don't think they can win, but I think they can cover the 4.5. I'll take the points in this, because I think there's a legitimate chance they win this game outright.
Yeah, that 4.5-point spread is interesting. If it's going to be that close in a playoff game, you would look outright at that money line number for Minnesota as well, who has been an underdog on the road 4 times in this postseason. 2 in Phoenix, the first 2 of this set in Denver. They have won outright in all 4 of those games away from Minneapolis as an underdog. Anthony Edwards, 29.5 is the points prop. 13.5 is the number for Aaron Gordon, who had 27 in game number 4, 11 of 12 from the floor. He has scored 13 plus in 3 straight games. Nikola Jokic, 29.5 since being named the NBA MVP. That efficiency we saw in all 82 games in the regular season. I think he played 79 or something of the sort. But in the regular season, that efficiency that was sky high was back in games 3 and 4 in the victories in Minneapolis. NBA MVP ceremony honoring the Joker back in the Mile High City before game number 5 tonight. I also look at the total, 206. Both games in Minnesota go over. Game 4 was the first time in this series both teams have scored over 100 points. If we get that tonight, 205.5, now 206, is a pretty short number if both teams can reach the century mark. Now, it's a Tuesday, and it's time to give you a best bet before we go. So before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time for Bye Bye Bye. So many options to choose from, DRS. What is your best bet on this Tuesday?
We're going to go Major League Baseball. We're going to go right down to the Big A, like you saw last night, a game that was 2-0, easily staying under the total. I think we stay under the total of 8 once again today. Chris Sale's been nothing short of spectacular here for the Braves, and Tyone has been a quality pitcher here for the Cubs. Let's go under the total of 8 down in the Big A tonight for me.
Yesterday, just a 2-0 game. Atlanta victorious over Chicago and Shota Imanaga. I already mentioned it. I bet yesterday Jalen Brunson's points prop at 32.5 when the over had plus money. It's up by a point. It's 33 and a hook, and the over still has plus money. If New York wins tonight, if the Knicks even keep this game decided by single digits, Jalen Brunson must go over either of those 2 numbers. And let's get some points tonight to start off a WNBA season in the career debut of one Caitlin Clark. Indiana on the road in Connecticut against the Sun. Total now at 166.5. I still like the over to see some points and some pace to start off this 2024 WNBA campaign. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for this Tuesday, live right here on the early line. But we're back tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday, live right here on the grid. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the early line.